break, I have a very special guest that's going to be joining me. This isn't going to be his first time on the show either. It's his fourth time appearing on one of the different interviews with myself, and it's now also the very first guest that I've had on when I started interviewing. He's the 15th overall guest, but he's in the very first portion when I first got started and was not the best overall interviews, but he's now a guy that's been drafted by the Phoenix Suns, the 40th pick in this year's draft. That's Oso Ighodaro. Oso, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I got to get right into it, man, because it's been a couple years since we last talked, and I know it always was a dream for yourself to be playing in the NBA. You're now drafted. Has it settled in yet that you're officially a part of the Phoenix Suns and a member of the NBA now?
Yeah, it's definitely settled in. Just working out with the team and settling in. It's been great getting to know all the new staff and players. So it's been a dream come true.
So what's overall just the feeling? I mean, has life changed at all? Is it pretty much the same old in terms of just your basketball player getting right after it? Or how is just the mentality switch now that you officially lived out the dream of being an NBA player now?
Yeah, honestly, nothing much has changed other than the fact that
Mm-hmm.
I'm living on my own now. I'm a really routine person, so
Yeah.
I've gotten into a nice routine with the strength staff, and the treatment and on court. So I really love my routine right now, and it's been great.
All right, so the biggest difference you say between college so far, just overall workouts, the way of lifestyle, and now being a part of NBA back in Phoenix, Arizona, what would you say those differences and similarities would be so far?
I would say the emphasis on like taking care of your body. I would say that's probably the biggest change that I've experienced in at Marquette, where we have one athletic trainer and now we have nine. And
Mm.
every piece of advice from vets and everyone I talk to is you got to keep your body healthy and ready to go for the 82 game season. So that's definitely something that I've taken a step forward in since I've been drafted.
Absolutely, man. Well, I want to get into a lot about the Phoenix Suns and overall your career so far and everything, but I want to go back a little bit before we get into that because obviously you've had a career that's got you to this point. I want people to kind of get to know you a little bit better as well. So I want to backtrack a little bit and let's go for a little bit in high school because you're back home now and you started out in Arizona, grew up out here. And the last thing, really the main thing I want to touch up on is that you already have been a successful player in the state of Arizona. You already won a state championship. So just kind of take us through that a little bit. Just being able to grow up in the state of Arizona and become a player that's already had a legacy before you even talk about a college or NBA standpoint. What has it just been like growing up out here in Arizona?
Yeah, it's been a dream. I was able to like you said, finish my high school career off with a state championship right before COVID, and
Mm-hmm.
that was like the best possible ending of my high school career. So, I think it's been definitely great to represent Arizona on the stage, and I think there's just so many good basketball players coming out in this that are going to continue to come out of Arizona. So, it's definitely a blessing to represent the state.
So when we first got to know each other a little bit, you were just starting to rise up the rankings, and you weren't obviously at the whole height you're at now. You're still in kind of that growth spurt time span. Would you have ever imagined if that was back, sophomore, junior season of high school, that you were going to be playing in the NBA one day, let alone even playing for the Phoenix Suns?
I mean, my dream since I started playing basketball was to play in the NBA. I didn't know when or how that was going to happen, but I knew with how I worked and I knew I had a good head on my shoulders. So I figured that God would just kind of take care of it.
Mm,
So I don't know. I've been just taking things one year, one day at a time,
sure.
and like it's just progressed to this point. So I'm definitely blessed to be here and extremely thankful.
So at what point of your career would you say it started to settle in where it wasn't just a dream anymore? It was more so something that you said, okay, this is a legitimate goal. This is something that I legitimately see myself as an option that I could legitimately pursue and become an NBA player one day.
I think going into my junior year of college, I took a really big jump between my sophomore and junior year in the summer. Just spent that's probably the hardest I'd ever worked in my career up to that point, and I got a lot better. And then going into my junior year, we won two Big East championships, and I kind of realized that I had a chance to go. And I thought about going maybe after my junior year, but I knew I needed a little bit more time, so I came back for another off season, got better, got stronger, and then obviously I'm here now. So
So you did touch up on one thing I do want to go into you with a little bit because that was talking about your faith, and I know you are a believer as well. So walk us through that a little bit because just knowing in your overall trust in God, how big has that been for you throughout this journey so far?
yeah, it's been huge. I mean, everything I do, I try to give credit to God. I
Mhm.
wouldn't be here obviously without him. I think it's good to have, especially for athletes in the world we live in, it's good to have something to ground you. And I know that's something you're big on as well. But there's just so much, the lifestyle is so fast paced and everything's thrown at you and all the social media and everything is just, it's a lot. And I think that having something to ground you and to turn to when things aren't going your way, because it's easy to live this way when you're playing well and everyone loves you, and but there's a lot of valleys as well in
Mhm.
this journey. So that's definitely something that I'm grateful that my parents instilled in me when I was younger, and I'm going to continue to grow in my faith.
That's what I want to ask you about because I know that since I got to know you, you've always been a believer. You always talked about God. When would you say that there was that transition though? Because I know obviously whenever somebody's blessed with having parents that kind of help mentor you and help kind of get you on the right path, that's huge and all. But then there's always that time in life where you take that jump and it becomes that personal relationship with Jesus. When would you say that started to really get established for yourself?
Yeah, I think in high school I met a lot of great people through church that
Mm,
kind of pushed me forward and pushed me to take those next steps in my faith. And I was blessed to have a lot of friends who also were believers as well. In high school, I did FCA, which I really loved a lot, and then I also got baptized in high school. So
mm.
those were all big steps for me.
All right, so you also mentioned a huge point there because obviously you make this transition to the NBA now, and there's going to be a lot more money involved. There's going to be a lot of other temptation that can come alongside that now. How big is it going to be for you to be able to maintain your faith and trust in God, even when there's going to be so many temptations that could easily hit you and come your way now?
Yeah, it's gonna be even more important. I think God has put people in my life that I see as my circle, and I try to keep my circle pretty small.
Hmm.
And I think that trying to maintain that is going to be key for me, because I think when you make it somewhere, you start being successful and you start letting a bunch of people in your circle, that's when things can kind of go wrong. So I don't know. I think just sticking to what I know, my routine and my people, and just keeping my head down and continuing to work. I think that making it to the NBA was just one step in my goal. And my ultimate goal is to win an NBA championship. So that's definitely something that I want to continue to work towards and have a successful career. So.
So I do want to ask you though, because you also alluded to the different valleys you go through, and that's something that every believer knows that it's not just when you give your life to Jesus, it's not just going to be all great moments. It's going to be trials and tribulations you have to go through in life. When would you say would be the biggest moment so far in your life, whether that be basketball related or not basketball related, that you had to trust in God and you really had to rely upon Him, and it really was that biggest valley for yourself?
Yeah, there's a bunch of moments, honestly. Um, I think after my freshman year, when the coaching staff shifted, I was thinking about transferring, and I didn't know how my career was going to go from there. And I was blessed enough that Shaka came to Marquette, and that was just the
Hmm.
ultimate blessing from God. I don't think that could have worked out any other way, like better than that. So I think just like in times of like that, turning towards God is huge, and then also remembering that it's not just when you need something to turn towards Him. You
Hmm.
know, that's something that I've definitely had to grow with in my faith, because obviously when you're struggling or you need something, it's this the easy thing to do is to pray. But when
Hmm.
things are going great, like it's important to remember to give appreciation and still turn towards Him, even if you don't need anything in the moment.
Absolutely, man. Well, you kind of brought me right to the next point I really want to get into with you, and that was your recruiting process. Because when you're going through that process, you really came down to just a couple of schools. Obviously, Texas was one of them with Coach Dr. Smart, and we know you ended up going as Wojo and Marquette. So walk us through that originally, though, because you decided that Coach was Shaka Smart was obviously a coach you did like. He made your top group, but then you chose to go with a different coach at that point in time. What was it about Marquette and Coach Wojo at that point in time that you said, you know what, this is where I feel like I'm supposed to go?
Yeah, I really liked both coaching staffs. I just didn't love Texas as a school, honestly.
Okay.
It's kind of more of a football school. There's a lot going on, and I just love the people at Marquette. It felt like home on my visit, and
Okay.
I'm obviously close with Marcus Howard and his family, so that was definitely just an added benefit to that decision. But just the people at Marquette and my visit was what sold me.
All right. So that makes a lot of sense because I'll be honest, when we were talking about your recruiting process back then, I know we had a couple interviews. I always thought that overall, the Coach Soccer Smart coaching would have been incredible because you looked at your play style, your potential at that point in high school, And then you look at the guys that he's coached before and got to the NBA. You look at guys like Kai Jones, Jericho Sims. You look at Jared Allen, Miles Turner, those type of guys, and it's like you're very, very similar. You have a lot of attributes. You have that big man kind of position where you're athletic, lengthy. When it all came to fruition, though, and you ended up getting the opportunity to then have Coach Shaka Smart end up at Marquette of all schools, what was your original reaction?
Yeah, I was extremely happy that I was familiar with the person that Marquette chose to hire, and then
Mhm.
it kind of got real pretty quick. He got to campus, and I had individual workouts, and that was like the hardest week of my basketball career. The workouts that they put me through, but I'm super grateful for that because it definitely boosted my progression as a player and a person as soon as he got there.
What would you say is the biggest difference then between what was expected and what you kind of experienced for a little bit with Coach Wojo and then Shaka Smart, just culture wise, everything along those lines? What would you say would be the biggest differences you noticed?
I think the emphasis on culture was definitely huge. That was a big shift, and then just the relationships. I think that Shaka preaches relationships all the time. That's his number one thing, and
Mhm.
building those strong relationships between the coaching staff and the players was super important, and that's definitely a big difference.
So I want you to expand on that part because I've had on all the guys from that core group pretty much have been on here from Omax to Cam, Tyler, and everybody immediately talks about those relationship aspects of Coach Shaka Smart. So I want to hear your perspective on that. He is obviously I mean people can only see him so much from what he does as a coach, some interviews here and there, but we're not able to go see him in the locker room when you guys go out to eat, whatever the case may be. What is Coach Shaka like when you just talk about the personal relationship aspect with him?
Yeah, I would say any interview or any speech or anything you see of him online or whatever, that's who he is. Like everything you see on the internet is exactly how he is in real life, and there's no faking it. He's the same person every day, and
Mm.
he really cares about his players. And I think that, I mean, in this age of NIL and recruiting and all that, it's very rare to have that. And I think that's why Marquez is going to continue to be successful for years to come.
All right, so you also talk us to that aspect because NIL was something that you just got thrown right into because when you got there in 2020, it was not an easy role because you had COVID whole situation going on. Then you bring in NIL, you have the portal stuff open up. It was kind of a hectic time span for you guys. And so from specifically the NIL standpoint, from first of all, that obviously had to be a transition, a good transition I have to imagine for the most part. But how was it just being able to embrace and be a part of this whole new transition in the college landscape?
Yeah, it was definitely different. I didn't do a ton of NIL outside of what Marquette provided.
Okay.
I kind of like to keep my life pretty simple, just basketball and school at that point. But
Mhm.
I think we did a good job with our collective of providing opportunities for the players while not getting carried away. I see some of the numbers these days, and it's like, I mean, it's great. It's great for the players, and the players obviously deserve it. But I think with that amount of money can come entitlement and just like ulterior motives to what the main goal should be winning. So I
Mm.
think we did a good job of keeping the main thing, and that's going to be key for teams if they want to win.
No, that's a huge thing because obviously you guys want to get paid. Not all guys are going to have the opportunity to go play in the NBA or whatnot. But still, you had the opportunity where you could have said, hey, I can make a lot of money. Even possibly you could have went into the transfer portal or something along those lines and maybe got more money somewhere else. What was it about you that said, you know what? I know that this is just college maximum for me. It could have been 5 years or whatever the case might have been. But I've got my eyes set on playing in the NBA one day and be able to make a lot more money long term playing professionally. How did you just keep those balances set straight for yourself and make sure you actually pursued the main goal?
Yeah, I think as a college athlete, you have to decide what you want. And
Mhm.
for someone who may realize early on they have no chance of playing in the NBA, then go for it. Go chase, get as much money as you can in those 4 years. I get that.
Yeah.
But for me and a lot of guys out there who do have a chance to play in the NBA, where you go to college is extremely important. And
Mm.
I wouldn't be the same player if I went to certain other schools. And I think that you have to prioritize that and the chance of winning, the chance of playing, the play style, all that over whatever school's offering the most money because it may not be a good fit. So Marquette was the perfect fit for me. So there's no doubt in my mind whether to stay or to leave.
I have to imagine that was a huge part because you look at this Marquette group and the core group that you guys are kind of grew together with because you got there with Dawson, Justin, guys like that. But then you obviously kind of solidify this core group of Omax, Tyler Kolek, Stevie, Joplin, and then obviously Cam as well. And in the transfer portal era, none of you guys left. You guys all remained there pretty much the entire time. Obviously, Dawson's the lone guy that transferred out. You guys all stay together when I'm sure people were probably calling you guys, trying to get you guys into the portal and whatnot. What was it about you guys that said, you know what, we're bought into this team. We're going to stay together until the only way we're going to leave each other is if we can go play in the NBA. What just kept you guys all locked in together?
Yeah, just the relationships that we have with each other and the coaching staff. I think there was nothing that we wanted elsewhere that we would get elsewhere, other than maybe you might get some more money at a different school. But I don't think what we have there, from player development to relationships to opportunity to play to how we play so free on the court, which is not necessarily common across college basketball. So I think it was kind of the perfect basketball world for us, and we all love each other a lot, so we wanted to stay together and play.
It has to be cool seeing all you guys have as much success as you guys have had. Tyler got drafted this year. Omax have now been in the NBA for one entire year. Would not be shocked to see Cam also make the NBA jump next year, and who knows who else on that group. Justin obviously made it as well. Seeing that you guys not only experienced a lot of success at the college level, but so many of you guys are now living out your overall dreams of playing in the NBA. How special is that?
It's extremely special because I think people think that you're it's like two different goals, your individual goals and the team goals, but really if you meet your team goals, the individual goals would be met as well.
Yep.
So that's something that Shaka definitely preaches, and if you keep that like team first mentality, it can take you a long way.
All right, so I do have to ask you though, because I alluded to the transfer portal era has had a lot of stuff going on. People trying to get guys to enter the portal. Was that ever something that occurred to you? Did anybody ever approach you at some point in time throughout your 4 years and try to get you to enter the portal and possibly go to a different school?
Yeah, definitely people back home reaching out, like
Hmm.
seeing where my head is at, but it was never a real possibility for me.
So what was it then? Like if when those transitions or people tried talking you into it or whatnot, how quickly was it pretty much a no bite for yourself?
Yeah, it was never a question. It was either go to the NBA or stay at Marquette. Like, there was never a thought in my head of transferring unless they fired Shaka or something like that.
Sure. All right, so I got a couple more things about Marquette before we transition now. And one of those things is that now with you and Tyler moving on, now it's a whole new era essentially at Marquette. Cameron's manning there, Steve, a couple other guys. But you know a lot of those guys in the locker room because there's a lot of guys that were in the rotation last year that's now going to have elevated roles. So for the Marquette fans out there, who should they be having an eye on? What can they kind of expect for this year's team, do you think?
Yeah, all those guys are gonna have expanded roles. All the guys that they saw play last year, Stevie, Cam, Jop, are obviously gonna have even bigger roles, and they're gonna be extremely successful. But then there's gonna be Ben Gold, who backed me up last year, but I think he's gonna dominate this season. I'm super excited
Hmm.
for him, and his development has just been super impressive. So I'm excited for him. Zay Lowry, who was a freshman last year, Trey Norman. You can go down the list. All those guys have improved, and we have such a focus on player development there that I can't wait to watch them play.
Absolutely. Well, we talked about NIL for a little bit now, and now that you are in the NBA, you do get that new paycheck and everything handing it to yourself. But has NIL, just being able to experience some form of the business aspect for yourself, has that made the transition any easier for you as you've now got to the NBA level?
A little bit. I mean, I'm pretty cheap as it is.
Sure.
I don't really like spending my money. So
Okay.
like most of my NIL money I invested, and my sister helped me with that because that's
Hmm.
her degree. But yeah, I didn't really buy anything in college. I haven't really bought anything yet. So yeah, so I was exposed to it, but it hasn't really changed much.
All right, that's what's up then. So I want to go through this draft process then because this time was the one you officially put your name in there and you stayed in there now for the entirety of it, obviously leading to you getting drafted. But when was it during this draft process you knew that, okay, I'm going to stay in this draft. This is the year I'm going to go pro. I know this is the year that guys got intended for me to go pro.
Yeah, well, my junior year, when I was thinking about going, Shaka told me that before you go, you want to be the most physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally ready as you can before you go. And I
Hmm.
knew I wasn't there last year, but my whole senior year, I knew I was leaving after that year. And
Okay.
so I think having that clarity really helped me going through the draft process. It was no question of am I testing the waters, or I think that's kind of dangerous for guys because you go in there like not fully invested into it, and
Mm.
you can potentially give yourself a bad evaluation in front of the NBA teams because you don't really care as much as you should. But
Mm.
I don't know, my entire draft process, I knew I was staying in.
Gotcha. All right, so you go through this process, and we know what the end result is. Phoenix Suns draft you. When did that become something that you were aware of? Was that not until draft night? Did you have a good kind of idea that they were going to be targeting you, or when did you get the idea that you could possibly be coming back home?
Well, they were the only team that had me for a second workout. They brought me back in, um, so I thought I could potentially get drafted in the first round to them. So the
Okay,
first night the draft went, and I didn't get picked. So this year was the first year of the 2 day draft. So in between days, there was all the teams were calling agents and talking to the agents and kind of because not every second round team gives out guaranteed contracts. So that was me and my agents like number one priority of the teams that were offering that, and so we knew that they were one of them. So I knew it was a possibility, but I didn't know for sure. And then the
okay.
Trailblazers drafted me, and so I was confused at first because I didn't know that was even a possibility. And then I heard that it was a trade, and yeah, so I was happy.
So do have to ask about that because for so many years now, people that follow the NBA draft have always been concerned and wondering why they don't change the thing where obviously you just get drafted and you actually put on the hat of the real team and everything along those lines. When did you finally get the clarity though? Because you, like you said, you thought you were going to go to Portland, and later on you eventually found out it's going to be Phoenix. So how long did that process take for you until you found out that you're not actually going to be a Trailblazer?
Yeah, they were interviewing me after they had called my name, and I put on the
Mhm.
Trailblazers hat and everything. And I heard on the TV that this is a part of a trade to the Phoenix Suns. So probably a couple minutes, and then I didn't get to take like the pictures with my new hat on because the trade had to be finalized, and it took a long time. But yeah, so it was a couple minutes of confusion for sure.
So you didn't find out except for the TV audio is basically all that you found out from?
Yeah, that was it.
I also have to ask you though, because when you were going from day one to day two, and you, like you said, you had a chance of possibly going day one, what were those next, what was it, about 15, 20 ish hours? What was kind of going through your mind, and what would just that 10 or 15 hours kind of time span like for yourself?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of ups and downs. Even
Hmm.
though I knew what my draft range was, obviously you think like I'm gonna hear my name called that first night.
Sure.
And I had gone into the day like expecting that I wasn't gonna hear my name, but then when I got to the draft, I'm like, I'm gonna hear my name called. I'm gonna have my
Sure.
so I kind of got my hopes up. So it was kind of a letdown after the first night. And then I kind of accepted that and moved on. That next morning, I worked out in the Players Association gym with one of my assistant coaches, Coach Barry.
Hmm.
And then went to the second day of the draft in their green room, and yeah, obviously that's where it was.
All right. So when you did find out that you're going to be coming back home playing for the Phoenix Suns, what went through your mind?
I got really excited. I just wanted to go home. 'Cause I hadn't been home, and other than my workouts with the Suns, it's been a minute since I was been back in Arizona. So I was
Hmm.
excited. I got to eat Rubio's. It's my favorite spot, favorite spot out here. And have my family here has just been a blessing.
All right, so now that you do get to get settled again, you get to be back in Phoenix. How excited are you just to be able to reconnect with a lot of people that you grew up with out here and have so much support because you know that you're going to have, I know because Gino's still out here, you have all the different guys you grew up in from Powerhouse guys and all those people, just having that extra support beyond just the overall Phoenix Suns fan base, but you get to have those true, close, and personal relationships get to support you now. How special is that going to be?
Yeah, it's really good. I definitely even in high school I had a small circle and
Hmm.
I still talk to those same high school teammates, Marcus, Drew, all those
Yeah,
guys. I still talk to them every day. Um, so I wouldn't say I have a whole lot of people out here, but
sure.
my circle out here that I care about and talk to, I'm very appreciative that I can be around them.
Absolutely. Well, you are going to be reuniting with somebody that you've played a lot of games with before, and that's Ty now. And I know every time we've had an interview, you guys have always been kind of closely knitted because you guys played together for a little bit. Then you guys have been growing up as two of the top guys in the state of Arizona. Now to see you guys both wearing the same jersey in the NBA, playing for the hometown team, what is that like?
Yeah, it's great. It's really a full circle moment coming
Yeah.
from the power days and when he's the best player on the team and I'm the worst, like way back then. So it's been great to get to reconnected with him and we've been playing well. So yeah, it's really good just to have a familiar face in the locker room for sure.
So I do have to ask you though, when you were growing up, did you have a favorite NBA team, and if so, was it the Phoenix Suns?
Definitely not. I just I followed LeBron wherever he went. That was kind
Okay.
of that was my team.
Absolutely. So I do have to ask this next part though, because you get a very unique experience now. Because playing for the Phoenix Suns, you're going to have an opportunity to compete for minutes now. Everybody knows that this is a very top-heavy overall roster, and there's an opportunity to get minutes at some point in the season. Maybe right out the gate, maybe later on. And you're a rookie. Those two things typically don't go alongside each other, especially when you're on a contending roster. And so, just knowing that you get this opportunity now to be able to play alongside some of these great players, and you have a chance to compete right out the gate as a rookie, what is this overall like, and how do you approach the season now?
Yeah, that's all you can ask for really as a rookie is just an opportunity. So
Hmm.
I think just approaching it the same way I've always approached my basketball career, just trying to get better every day, learn as much as I can. The NBA is definitely different than college, so I've been trying to ask as many questions to KD, Book, even the people in my same position, Nurk and Mason. I've tried to ask them a
Yeah.
ton of questions. So just trying to learn as much as I can, and when I get my opportunities to compete and go after it.
I still do want to go into those guys you actually just talked about. And so we got to start off with Kevin Durant. You have the opportunity now to play with one of the greatest players to ever touch the basketball. What has it been like just being able to learn from him so far in the brief time you guys have always been together? But just what's it been like being able to pick his brain and just be around him so far?
Yeah, it's been great. Just any time that you can, that many years of basketball, that talent level is great to compete against. Especially, I think that's probably the thing that's been helping me the most is competing against those guys and being able to be on the floor and guard and just you learn even from just watching them work out, you learn so much. So, I think just being in that basketball environment was just a dream come true.
What would you say has been the biggest lesson so far that you have learned from KD?
I think just the way he takes care of himself
Mhm.
and approaches every day. I think that there's kind of a misconception of like you have to be in the gym for 4 or 5 hours doing this, that, and the third. But if you watch him work out, he's the same way every day. Full speed,
Mhm.
game speed, every rep is intentional, shoots the ball the same way every time. And seeing that is kind of just a cookie cutter for me. Like that's how I'm supposed to approach things. So that's without even words, that's the biggest thing I've learned.
So just seeing these guys, was there any form of almost being starstruck a little bit at first, knowing that okay, it's not even guys that you're just gonna go see, watch at an NBA game. These are your teammates now. These guys are gonna go to war with over the entire duration of an NBA season. But at first, just seeing them, being able to go work out with them, being on their team and whatnot, was there any form of like starstruck going on for with yourself?
Maybe a little bit, but we got straight to pickup when they got
Hmm.
here, so that kind of gets thrown out the window once you cross those lines and you're matched
Sure.
up with those guys. That's out the window, and I'm trying to go at them, and I'm trying to win and compete and prove myself. So, I
Hmm.
mean, definitely just having those names in the locker room is crazy for sure. But once we get on the court, that all goes out the window.
All right. So then I also want to ask you about Book and Beal because those two guys are also all-star guys, guys that have had incredible, exceptional NBA careers as well so far. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from both of those two guys?
I think both of those guys, their knowledge of the game is so far above their talent level, and I think everyone thinks
Mhm.
that they're so successful because of just how talented they are and what they can do on the floor. But every time I talk to them, I feel like I learn like a basketball specific thing, like how Brad comes off of a pin down or how he
Mhm.
views angles and plays low. So it's just like little basketball things that they can make a one little statement that I can learn a lot from. And I think that those two and KD, all their basketball IQ is so high, and just to be around guys like that is so helpful.
And then you also talked about the two guys at your own position group as well, in Nurk and Plumlee, who both of those guys have been in the league for a very long time now, have learned how to play their role at a very high level and be able to make a lot of money, a lot of success. What would you say you've learned from those two guys, specifically not just as a basketball player, but also specifically for your own position and how to accept a role and grow in that role?
Yeah, from Mason, I think even in college, Shaka had me watching his film just because of
Okay.
how underrated he is as a playmaker, and
Mhm.
he does a little bit of everything on the floor, and teams really value that. So I've been watching his film for years and what he does, and then Nurk, he's very his basketball IQ is extremely high as well. and the way he passes the ball is very underrated. I think that competing against him and his balance of skill, size, and he just has a little bit of everything. And seeing how he uses all that and knows when to use his strength, knows when to use his skill is something that I've been learning a lot from.
All of these guys have, like I said, have had a lot of overall experience so far in their careers now. And you know that you're going to be going in there and you're going to be able to experience an opportunity, like I said, to be able to play minutes right away. How are you approaching that overall now for yourself? Like, what are you working on? What do you plan to be able to bring to this team this year?
Yeah, I'm just trying to be a connector for this team. We have so much talent on the floor at all times, so anytime you can make their lives easier is what you got to do. But honestly, I'm just going into it with an open mind,
Mhm.
trying to listen to Coach Bud, listen to those older guys, and whatever they need from me, I'm gonna do. I know we have championship aspirations this year, so whatever they want from me, I'm gonna try to contribute to winning as much as I can.
So we break down your game a little bit now, as you kind of talked about. You're overall going to be going there to play whatever role that is, and you have the ability, as we've seen, to be a guy that can impact the game in a lot of ways outside of just scoring. You obviously are capable of doing that as well, but overall, you're a guy that has a lot of traits similar to those of like a Draymond or Bam or even Jaren Jackson, who you worked out with a little bit ago too. In terms of you can almost kind of run the offense in a certain degree of being able to play make around yourself. Walk us through this overall what you plan on bringing to the team specifically in terms of your game and how you can kind of fit into this roster.
Yeah, I think how I can impact this roster, just especially my skills out of the short roll and my passing and my floater. Brad, Book, and KD are all guys that draw a lot of attention, especially coming off of ball screens. And when defenses come between putting two on them or putting two on me, it's not really there's not really a question right now. So anytime I can get that ball in the short roll and make the next right play, is something that the team's gonna want from me.
All right, so you guys also have a brand new coach now, Coach Bud, that's coming in. What's your guys' relationship like so far? What's your guys' conversations been like, and what's it been like being able to get to know him so far?
Yeah, it's been great. He took me and Ryan out for dinner in summer league, and just um, that initial moment was is definitely something that I valued. And coming from Marquette, where Shaka pours into that relationship, has been great to have an NBA coach who I haven't been on any other team, obviously, but I don't know if
Mhm.
that's the same everywhere. So he's definitely been pouring into that relationship so far, and it's been great.
Now, Coach Bud isn't just any coach; he's an NBA champion already. He's the guy that's accomplished extremely a lot of great things so far in his NBA career. Being able to be coached by a guy with that much knowledge, once again, a guy that's been so experienced, has won a championship. How has it just been able to pick his brain now as a coach and just learn from him?
Yeah, it's been great. Our entire coaching staff they built with a ton of experience, a lot of guys that have coached a lot of elite guys. So everything that they're telling me, I'm just trying to take in, write it down, and apply it. So I'm just really just being a sponge as much as I
Mhm.
can learn from. There's so much basketball knowledge in that facility. So every day that I go in there, I try to learn.
All right, so it's only been a few months though, but what would you say has been your favorite memory that you've had so far as a Phoenix Sun?
Uh, I think honestly, just pickup. Pickup has
Yeah.
been really fun for me. Just getting to compete with this level of talent is just a dream come true for any hooper. So I think just being on the floor with everyone and going at each other has been my favorite memory.
So I got to ask you, I know a lot of time people always say, have you had your rookie moment yet? And that might be sometimes done in the regular season when you go against other teams. But would you say you've had a rookie moment so far, or you're welcome to the NBA moment so far in those pickup games?
Uh, I don't know about welcome to the league yet because I haven't stepped foot on the floor,
Sure.
but I mean, I think like switching the pick and roll and guarding KD and then closing out to Brad or someone and then going to box out Nurk is is kind of a moment that like that's just the best of this is the best of all the worlds put together. So I just love competing. I love being out there, and I think the level of competition I feel like I rise. So it's been a blessing.
So I also want to touch up on the rookies, especially now, because it seems like you and Ryan specifically have a really good relationship so far. You guys have hit it off really quickly. Walk us through you guys' bond, just being able to get to know each other so far, being two guys that's going to be rookies on a contending roster together now. What's your guys' relationship been like alongside Jalen as well?
Yeah, it's been great. Ryan throughout the pre-draft process a little bit at the combine, and we had a couple workouts together. So
Mhm.
having that initial little foundation and then having someone to go through this process with has been great just because there's so much knowledge and so much just uncertainty. So it's definitely good to have like a built-in friend from the jump.
Yeah.
So it's been great. He's also like-minded, a great high character, works hard. So having someone with those same values has been great. And the same applies with JB.
And so you guys were able to go in the summer league so far, and you guys got a little bit of your feet just wet playing at the somewhat to degree, obviously the NBA level. What was that original experience like? Just being able to step foot on a court that obviously had the NBA logo and play with a lot of other fellow NBA players.
Yeah, it was different for sure. Just coming from Marquette, where we're all best friends, and just going into summer league where we don't even know everyone on the roster's name yet.
Yeah.
That was definitely different for sure. But it was good just to get out there. I hadn't played since the Sweet 16 in a real game, so that was definitely good to get out there and get my feet wet.
All right, so I do also want to touch upon a couple of things before I let you go. And one of those is that I alluded to a few minutes ago that you also worked out with Jaren Jackson Jr. a little bit ago. And that's a guy that you guys do have some similarities to. Obviously, his ability to switch and play at a high level defensively as a good great rim protector as well. And also, like I said, he has that ability just to kind of set the offense up. They can bring the ball up when needed to. And those similar characteristics between you two. Being able to just learn from a guy like that who's had such a great career so far as well, what have you picked up being able to work out with him?
Yeah, I think when I worked out with him, the first thing I noticed was just the force that he plays with, and
Mm.
I think that's something that I've definitely coming from high school and being just a soft wing kid to how I play now is something that I've worked so hard on, and seeing like almost the peak level of force and just aggressiveness that he moves and dribbles and attacks the rim with is something that I definitely am striving to get towards.
Absolutely, man. Well, I've got one of the final things I want to touch up on with you is I got a little quick game for you, rapid reflection. It's going to be 10 quick questions. You don't have to expand on any of them, just quick little answers for these ones. And so let's get right to it. The first one is, which player are you the most excited to match up against this year?
LeBron.
The city you're most looking forward to visit in the NBA this year?
Milwaukee.
Your first NBA purchase?
My first month's rent in my apartment.
Your favorite college basketball game?
Uh, Against UConn in the Big East tournament.
Your least favorite college basketball game?
Against UConn in the Big East tournament the following year.
If you couldn't play basketball, what job would you be pursuing right now?
Probably coaching or training.
Which player would you say you model your game after the most?
Bam.
The team you're most excited to play this year?
New York Knicks.
One word to describe yourself would be?
Thoughtful.
And the last one, who's winning the NBA championship this year?
The Suns.
Absolutely, man. Well, my final thing I always like wrapping up each interview with is asking about your legacy, because I know ultimately you want to be remembered for something when it's all said and done. So when that day does come and you decide to move on, whether that be from Phoenix Suns, if you stay here your entire NBA career, or your overall just career when you step away from basketball, what is it that you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, I definitely want to make a mark. We just learned so much at the Players Association meetings about like foundations and giving back, and I think definitely when I get settled in the NBA, that's something I want to give back in Arizona, and just the whether that's basketball or just people who are less fortunate, I want to give back, and hopefully whatever foundation or how I decide to do that is how I'm remembered.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you taking time to come on once again, man. And I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you, not only this upcoming season, but throughout your entire career, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Of course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.